There are 3 rules I religiously live by. Don't pay attention to them. Don't sleep on my back. And never, ever remove the white string from my wrist. After the dark entity, the monk, and the other scary unexplainable incidents had been traumatizing me for about a month, I broke down. I was in the hospital for 4 days and decided to go back home with my friend Jan. We went to my aunt's house to pack my stuff. We, however, had to spend one night there so we could catch a flight the next day. Jen and I shared a room. Since the night I glimpsed the monk outside the door, I was afraid to be in this room alone. Although I had always liked the place because of its spaciousness, open ceiling, and archy roof, it felt suffocating in here now. The beams that ran across the ceiling creaked sometimes, and that made me wince. Nevertheless, Jen was a sort of comfort. She is strong and confident, a kind of person who would dive into anything head down and dress up her own wound afterward. Jen screams at danger, while I cried at it. The night cradled us to sleep, but it was that dark entity again. It was on top of me, taking the air from my chest and yanking me upward. I couldn't move or call for help. Whatever it wanted, I resisted. This time, the wrangle was crucially long and tormenting. I was exhausted and scared at once. I panicked, my hope withering. When would it end? But then my arm was jerked harshly, and my name echoed in my ears. I immediately snapped out of that horrifying state, and I saw that Jen was holding my arm tight. I had to thank her for that. A strange joy showered me, for Jen's was pale and her eyes round. She had to see it. Now she knew that I had been telling the truth the whole time. You saw it? I asked. Could Jen see the dark entity? Did you see what it did to me? I said eagerly. You saw it try to steal my soul? You know the truth now? Jen seemed disturbed than before. She shook her head and said, I saw a monk. Oh, you saw him, I said, feeling a little disappointed for some reason. The monk was attacking me? I wonder if the monk was the same as the dark entity. Maybe they were the same force but manifested differently. Jen shook her head again, and then she began to tell me what she saw. Because of all the traveling and the drama at the hospital, Jen quickly fell asleep. But then a cough woke her up. She turned to me and saw that I was sleeping peacefully. Then she shifted in bed, and something on the beams under the roof made her skin jump. People were sitting on the axles above her. They were all young, women and men, and they were all staring at Jen. She squinted, thinking her brain might be playing a trick. She rubbed her eyes and peered at the beams again. Those people were still there, waiting and looking at Jen patiently. The logical explanation would be that Jen was tired, or she was dreaming right now. So she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, those people were still there, and they seemed to be curious about her more than ever. Jen sprang out of bed immediately, her heart racing out of control. She wasn't sure what she saw, but her instinct told her to get out of the room. Jen turned at me, but I wasn't on the bed. She spun around looking for me, while people on the beams were observing her. She panicked. Jen said her heart never beat so loud and fast. Although the people on the beams were just sitting and doing nothing, their gazes were eerie and unfriendly. When Jen was about to call out my name, she felt another presence in the room. Jen took some step back when a monk ambled toward her. He was tall, and his robe was dirty. Yes, he was in worse shape than anyone who was sitting on the beams. Yet he didn't seem to be a threat. Jen rubbed her eyes furiously, unable to comprehend the surrounding. The monk then pointed at the bed, and when Jen followed his direction, she saw that I was stiffened under the blanket. That was when she snatched me out of my torment. She didn't see any dark entity, but a whole lot of strange people and the monk. The next morning, my mom, Steve, Jen, my aunts, and I decided to sit down and talk our hearts out. I was surprised to see Jen handle the situation so well, despite having her whole perception shifted so suddenly. The greatest thing was that she didn't seem to be afraid of the unnatural. She took it as a challenge, as another problem to solve. We all decided that the monk was the beginning of all this. He had to be. He was everywhere, and a lot of people had seen him. I should also point out that my family and Jen were not only the people who saw the monk. Actually, my aunt saw him too. A lot of people saw him in the house. In fact, people had seen things around me. It was like I was the magnet for these supernatural things, and it made people want to stay away from me. Nobody knows where he's now, my mom said. Steve added that the monk was probably dead. That's why we saw the spirit. We went back to the temple, the place where it all began, a place where my mom pledged me to the monk she barely knew, in the hope to heal my tantrum. We met the current abbot who, like before, had no information to offer. But then he told us to talk to the village shaman. The shaman was the only one old enough and had a close relation to the temple. He used to come to the temple every day, but since he got really old, he couldn't make a visit. The shaman dealt with traditional rituals, combining magic and religions for the good of the people. People in the village would request his service when they were sick and can be healed by modern medicine. Some called him to be blessed, and some called him to cast away bad wives. He was very respectable and everyone knew him. Even my mom knew him, but it never occurred to her to talk to him about this before. The shaman was about 80, skinny and a little dull. His hair was all gray, and the wrinkles on his skin were deep like cuts. We told the shaman the whole story, as he sighed a lot and looked away from us all the time. I remembered that monk. The shaman began. He left the temple with the donation money, which was supposed to be used to build a crematorium. So it was true, I thought, as I slightly blamed my mom for giving me to someone like that. She should have looked into him before giving her child to this person, but it was too late, wasn't it? The shaman looked at me. Karma is personal. Karma couldn't be transferred, couldn't be inherited, and couldn't be willed away. Whatever has happened is the retributions of your past. The wheel is spinning. He nodded. As per the shaman, the monks lived in a village 30 miles from here. The rumor said he left the monkhood a year after the scandal. We followed the breadcrumbs to a small house in another village. This was said. The cottage sat on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere. Could it be the dead end? I hoped so, because as per Jan, the dead end meant the answer. The woman, who was about 60 years old, opened the door. She frowned and nervously walked to us. We told her that we wanted to meet a monk. I would leave his name unsaid here. She looked bewildered and said to us that he had passed away years ago. After a accusation, he surrendered his title and came home. He pretty much lived his life normally until he passed away from old age. He was cremated, and his bones were kept in the wall of a temple like the other dead people. It doesn't seem right. I thought to myself as I stood before the wall of a temple. There were little boxes carved inside the bricks just to put the pictures of the dead. I looked at the image of a man who was my spiritual adoptive parent. He had left the yellow robe. He was just a man, a stranger, an obviously normal man. I felt empty, disappointed to be honest. There wasn't any connection here. And to tell you the truth, I didn't think that this man was haunting me at that point. Feeling helpless, I looked at Mom, Steve, and Jan. I didn't want another night with a dark entity or the monks who could have been someone else. This was the dead end, but where was the answer? Jen and I had a plane to catch. The answer I needed wasn't in Thailand. It wasn't anywhere. I didn't know what to do. My mom told me to visit the shaman one last time, at least for good luck. Surprisingly, Jen was quite perceptive, but with what she had recently experienced, she should be. At the shaman's house, we all sat in a circle around a silver tray with banana leaves, flowers, candles, and white strings. He chanted, and we repeated things he said, even though we didn't know what it meant. Afterward, the shaman tied a white string around my left breast. "Keep this with you at all times," he said, and bid me good luck. At that moment, my tears dropped. My life would never be the same again. I asked the shaman why the monk and the dark entity wouldn't leave me alone, although I had given them all the merits that I had been making. The shaman asked if I was confident that the monk wanted to hurt me. I nodded to frustration, but then realized that what had been troubling me was only the dark entity. I saw a monk a few times and a woman at a meditation facility, but they didn't do anything to me. The dark entity, however, wanted my soul. The ghosts who can touch you are your karma, the shaman said. Your past life, I saw, were terrible crimes. You had caused many people unbearable pain, and it's their right to come after you. Hearing the shaman, I shuddered. How could I be responsible for something I didn't know or do? Karma is inescapable. You will have to pay your debts to stop the wheel. What can I do? I asked. I can only advise you to do good, the shaman said. Be kind and collect merits. It won't fix the problem, but it will help you in the future. He looked at my mom. As for the monk, I will say this. No parent wishes their children misery. I don't think the monk is trying to hurt you. The man might not have been a monk for a long time, but when he was, perhaps there was some good in him. And that good was what had been doing his job as per the pledging ritual. There was a comfort in the last of his speech. Perhaps the monk was trying to protect me from other malicious spirits that had been following me. But even if it were true, I never wanted to see him again. I'm sorry to say that I can't give you the proper ending to my story. I left Thailand without the answer or the solution for my supernatural disease. I'm haunted by my own karma. I see spirits, and people around me can see them too. I see the monk. I attract the unseen. People have asked me to talk to their lost loved ones. Some ask me to read tarot cards. Some ask me to see their palms. And my answer has always been no. I'm scared of these things, and I want to stay away from them as far as I can. One entity, the one that was enormous and dark, attacks me when I sleep. My hands are black, and only I can see their true color. I can't run away from any of this, but I've learned to live with them. I have accepted that I'm not normal, and perhaps cursed. I know that supernatural is real. And my best friend Jen now has her own little side research on paranormal. I live with my disease, and I can't go on as long as I follow 3 simple rules. First, I shouldn't pay attention to them. When I see spirits, I ignore them. They get stronger when I react to them. Second, don't sleep on my back. I find it safer to sleep on my side. The dark entity usually comes to me when I sleep on my back. Sleeping on my sides also allows me to hold the bed when the apparition is trying to take me away. Lastly, never ever remove the white string on my wrist. I don't know how to explain this, but it protects me. I never take it off. I finished this story on August 8, 2019. I moved out of my mom's place years ago and now stay with my sister Helen. I'm still living with supernatural troubles and the rules that help me get by. Maybe one day I'll give you the update. But now, I'll have to say goodbye. Angie.